The Galactic Union was the oldest, largest, and most respected interstellar organization in the known universe. Founded millennia ago, it operated with a level of bureaucratic precision that made terrestrial organizations seem chaotic by comparison. Its protocols were ancient, its procedures meticulous, and its diplomatic rituals have been refined over countless generations of diverse species working together. Ambassador Kalen had served the Union for over 70 orbital cycles, which translated to roughly 2 centuries in Earth years. A tall, willowy being with iridescent skin that shifted colors according to the formal requirements of various diplomatic functions, Kalen was the embodiment of galactic tradition. He took immense pride in knowing every nuance of proper protocol, every subtle gesture that conveyed respect across 1,000 cultures, and the precise wording needed to navigate the most delicate negotiations. The invitation has been prepared according to all standard protocols, Kalen announced to his assistant Alara, who was reviewing a holographic display of diplomatic correspondence. Unlike her superior, Alara was relatively young for her position, having only 40 cycles of experience. Where Kalen was rigid and traditional, she was adaptable and pragmatic. All the formal phrasings are impeccable, she agreed, scrolling through the glowing text. But I still think we should reconsider some of the ceremonial requirements. This species is quite different. Kalen made a dismissive gesture, his skin rippling with blue patterns that indicated mild irritation. The protocols exist precisely for species that are different, as you put it. They provide structure and predictability for those unfamiliar with interstellar diplomacy. The Union Council had recently voted to formally invite humanity to a peace conference. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last decade, making them extraordinarily young in galactic terms. Reports about them were inconsistent at best. Some described them as brilliant innovators. Others warned of their unpredictability and contradictory behaviors. What was clear was that 2 long-standing Union members, the crystalline Lithosians and the gaseous collective intelligence of the Nebular, had developed a territorial dispute over a remote star system, and the Union believed this relatively minor conflict would serve as a perfect introduction for humanity to galactic diplomacy. The invitation emphasizes the great honor being bestowed upon them, Kalen continued, as well as the historical significance of their participation in such an esteemed gathering. 3 solar cycles later, a response arrived from Earth. The formal acceptance was, to Kalen's satisfaction, properly formatted and respectfully worded. However, attached to it was an extensive appendix titled Conditions for Optimal Collaborative Atmosphere. "What is this?" Kalen asked, his skin shifting to a concerned purple as he scrolled through the document. "Is this some kind of joke?" Alara leaned forward, her interest piqued. "It appears to be a set of requirements." Kalen's voice rose with each item he read. Condition 1. The right to bring an emotional support ecosystem? What does that even mean? According to my quick research, Alara said, studying her own terminal, it seems to involve bringing living organisms for psychological comfort. Condition 2. Mandatory stress relief sessions? They want to interrupt formal diplomatic proceedings with esports tournaments, impromptu concerts, speed cooking classes. Alara's expression was unreadable, but there was a hint of amusement in her voice. Fascinating cultural framework. They appear to value regular emotional regulation activities. Condition 3, Kalen continued, his skin now flashing alarming patterns of red and yellow. Recognition of universal online visual language as a valid communication method in informal discussions, with an accompanying reference library that will be constantly updated. What could this possibly be? Alara's search revealed images of cats with improbable captions, cartoon frogs, and various human facial expressions paired with text. They call them memes. They appear to be culturally contextual visual jokes that convey complex ideas through shared reference points. This is preposterous, Kalen exclaimed. Condition 4. A multicultural emergency sustenance hub, operating at all hours? They want a permanent food court. And Condition 5, Alara noted with growing interest, proposes the use of something called rock, paper, scissors to resolve minor procedural disagreements when consensus cannot be quickly reached. This is completely unacceptable. Kalen's skin had now settled into a deep crimson of outrage. These conditions make a mockery of our sacred diplomatic traditions. We cannot possibly. There are also the more conventional conditions, Ilera interrupted. Maintaining independent military presence, fair bilateral technology exchange. Those are quite standard. The matter was escalated to the Union High Council, where a heated debate ensued. Some counselors were simply curious about these strange human customs. Others saw little harm in humoring a young species on relatively minor matters. A few strategic thinkers suggested that accepting now would give them more leverage in future negotiations with this unpredictable new power. After much deliberation, the council voted to accept all conditions, with Ambassador Kalen assigned to oversee the human delegation. When informed of this decision, Kalen's skin turned a shade of gray that hadn't been seen on him in decades. "This will be the most difficult assignment of my career," he murmured to Ilera as they prepared for the humans' arrival at Unity Station, the Union's massive diplomatic hub. "Or the most interesting," Ilera replied. Unity Station hummed with anticipation as the human vessel approached. Kalen had called an emergency meeting with his staff, warning them based on Ilera's preliminary research that they should prepare for unusual behaviors and bizarre customs. "Remember," he instructed his team, "maintain diplomatic composure regardless of what you witness. These humans are unpredictable, but they're now our guests." The human ship itself was the first surprise. Unlike the elegantly functional designs preferred by most spacefaring civilizations, it featured vibrant artworks spanning its hull, depicting scenes from Earth's cultures and landscapes. As it docked, a melody that Ilera's database identified as "Also Sprach Zarathustra" by Richard Strauss blared from external speakers. They announced themselves with music, one junior diplomat whispered. "Apparently it's from something called 2001, A Space Odyssey," Ilera explained. "A human cultural touchstone about space exploration." The airlock cycled open, and Ambassador Anya Sharma led the Earth delegation into the reception area. She was a woman in her late 40s with an easy smile that masked sharp intelligence. Her formal attire blended elements of various Earth cultures, a jacket inspired by Indian design over a Western business suit, accessorized with jewelry incorporating African and indigenous American motifs. "Ambassador Kalen," she said warmly, extending her hand in the human custom. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored to join this historic conference. Allow me to introduce my key team members." Kalen's skin rippled with the formal greeting pattern as he carefully took her hand, still uncomfortable with the alien custom of physical contact for greetings. "This is Dr. Kenji Tanaka," Anya continued, indicating a composed Japanese man, our ESE coordinator. Dr. Tanaka bowed slightly. "I look forward to introducing you to our emotional support ecosystem." "Dr. Lena Petrova," Anya continued, gesturing to a tall woman with short silver hair, "our UOVL communications specialist. I've prepared an introductory meme pack for easy reference," Dr. Petrova said with a smile that didn't quite reach her analytical eyes. "And our engagement director, Michael Washington," Anya concluded, presenting a cheerful man with a ready smile. "He'll be overseeing our MSRS and MESH implementations. I brought recipes from 17 Earth cultures," Washington announced enthusiastically. "And I can't wait to share our stress relief activities." Kalen's skin had begun to display patches of anxious yellow, which he struggled to control. "We have prepared accommodations according to your unique specifications. Perhaps you would like to rest before." "Actually," Dr. Tanaka interjected politely, "we should introduce the ESE members first. They've been in transit containment and require immediate release for their well-being." Before Kalen could respond, Dr. Tanaka activated a control on his wrist device. A series of containment pods emerged from the human ship, hovering into the reception area. The first pod opened to reveal what appeared to be a small, furry creature with long limbs and an unnervingly serene face. It wore miniature tinted eye coverings. "This is Zen," Dr. Tanaka explained as the sloth slowly, extraordinarily slowly, raised one arm in what might have been a wave. "She's a specially trained comfort sloth." The second pod released a swarm of luminescent butterflies that immediately formed into a perfect sphere before dispersing to gentle float around the reception area. "The Lumina Collective," Dr. Tanaka continued. "They're genetically enhanced to form simple visual patterns and respond to emotional states in the room." The third pod revealed what appeared to be a miniature tree in an ornate pot. Before anyone could comment, it emitted a deep, resonant musical note that gradually developed into what Alera's system identified as an operatic aria. "This is Verdi," Dr. Tanaka said, as if a singing plant were perfectly normal. "A bioengineered bonsai with vocal capabilities. Mostly classical repertoire, though he's been experimenting with jazz lately." Finally, the fourth pod opened to reveal a small robot shaped like an earth penguin. It immediately waddled forward, surveyed the room, and announced in a cheerful voice, "Recommended action for current barometric pressure and ambient temperature. Consider a light sweater and stay hydrated." Remember, proper hydration is the foundation of effective negotiation. "And this is PNGUIN," Dr. Tanaka concluded. "Personal Enhancement Negotiation Guide and Utility Intelligence Network." He offers life advice, though I should warn you, it's not always contextually appropriate. Chaos erupted almost immediately. Zen the sloth, having been placed near the main corridor, promptly fell asleep in the middle of the walkway, causing a minor traffic jam. The butterfly swarm formed a giant smiley face behind a stern Lithosian ambassador during his formal greeting. Verdi the bonsai burst into "O Sol Mio" just as Kalen began his welcome speech. And PNGUAN approached a plant-based delegate, cheerfully recommending tree hugging as an excellent stress management technique. Kalen's skin had become a mottled mess of stress patterns, but Ambassador Sharma handled each incident with graceful humor, transforming potential diplomatic disasters into moments of connection. She introduced the ESC components as nonverbal communication catalysts, explaining how each served to break down barriers between different species. Humor and comfort are universal languages, she explained to a group of curious delegates while gently redirecting Zen to a less obstructive location. Sometimes formal language creates barriers that emotional connections can bypass. Meanwhile, Michael Washington had begun setting up the Multicultural Emergency Sustenance Hub, which immediately triggered debates about energy usage regulations and food safety protocols. The aroma of fresh coffee and baking bread soon began to spread through the diplomatic quarter, drawing curious onlookers. Dr. Petrova's presentation of a UOVL library to interested communications officers only added to the confusion. Her explanation of how an image of a distracted boyfriend could represent complex political relationships left many scratching whatever they used for heads. By the end of the first day, Kalen was convinced that the conference was doomed to failure, while Alera found herself unexpectedly intrigued by humanity's unorthodox approaches. The official conference proceedings began the next morning with a lengthy presentation on updated intergalactic trade regulations. As the speaker droned on about subsection amendments to cargo classification codes, Alera noticed something interesting. Members of the human delegation were discreetly sharing small food items from containers labeled with the mesh logo. More surprisingly, she observed junior delegates from other species accepting these offerings with growing enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Dr. Petrova was quietly showing something on her personal device to a young nebular diplomat, who responded with the equivalent of suppressed laughter, a slight shimmer in their gaseous form. When the formal session concluded, Ambassador Sharma rose to address the gathering. As per our agreed conditions, we will now commence our first mandatory stress relief session. Today, we have prepared a friendly tournament of a strategic simulation called StarCraft 2. Kalen immediately objected. Ambassador Sharma, surely this can be scheduled during free periods rather than interrupting official proceedings. Ambassador Kalen, Sharma replied politely but firmly. These sessions were explicitly included in our conditions, which were formally accepted by the Union Council. They are not optional diversions, but integral components of our diplomatic methodology. Despite Kalen's protests, the main conference hall was quickly transformed. Holographic interfaces appeared, displaying what seemed to be colorful battlefield maps. Most delegates were hesitant, but several younger representatives and a few naturally competitive species showed immediate interest. The game simulates resource management, strategic decision-making, and adaptation to opponent tactics. Washington explained as he helped delegates select their virtual species, Terran, Protoss, or Zerg. To everyone's surprise, General Kthak of the Mantodine Legions, a fearsome six-limbed warrior species known for their military prowess, took to the game with unexpected enthusiasm. The Zerg swarm tactics, the general chittered excitedly to his aide, are remarkably similar to our ancestral hunting patterns. By the end of the tournament, which General Kthak won decisively, the atmosphere in the conference hall had transformed. Species that had maintained formal distance for centuries were now engaged. In animated discussions about game strategy and playful rematches were being scheduled. Meanwhile, elements of the emotional support ecosystem had found unexpected roles. Zen the Sloth had become a popular meditation companion, with stressed delegates taking breaks to sit quietly beside the serene creature. The Lumina butterflies created gentle light displays during break periods, providing a calming visual focus. Verdi the bonsai took requests, performing suitable musical selections to match the mood of discussions. And PNGYN, despite its often inappropriate advice, had a knack for providing surprisingly relevant schedule optimizations. During a tense discussion about climate intervention policies on a disputed colony world, Dr. Petrova displayed a meme showing a cartoon dog sitting in a burning room, saying this is fine. The image, with its clear visual metaphor of ignoring obvious disaster, communicated the urgency of the situation more effectively than the preceding hour of technical data had done. I'm compiling an unofficial meme dictionary, Ilera informed Kalen after observing this exchange. They appear to function as emotional and conceptual shorthand. This is not how diplomacy is conducted, Kalen muttered, his skin displaying patterns of deep frustration. Later that day, a vote on relocating a formal reception ended in deadlock. As procedural debates threatened to consume the remainder of the session, Ambassador Sharma stood up. I propose we resolve this through rock, paper, scissors, she announced. One representative from each viewpoint, best of three. Kalen began to object, but to his astonishment, the representatives from both deadlocked factions agreed, finding the prospect novel and even amusing. As the delegations watched with fascination, the Lithosian representative formed crystalline structures resembling the required shapes, while the nebular ambassador manipulated their gaseous form. The simple game ended the stalemate with unexpected grace and even generated laughter, a sound rarely heard in formal union proceedings. By the fourth day of the conference, however, the central issue, the territorial dispute between the Lithosians and nebulars, had reached an impasse. Traditional negotiations had failed. Behind closed-doors sessions had produced no compromise. Multiple proposals had been rejected by both sides. The atmosphere grew tense once more, with accusations being exchanged and ancient grievances resurfacing. After consulting with her team, Ambassador Sharma requested an audience with the union chair. Hours later, an announcement was made. Regular proceedings would be suspended for a cultural and scientific fair, where the disputing parties would be required to collaborate on hypothetical future joint ventures. This is infantilizing serious diplomacy, Kalen protested during the emergency planning meeting. The union chair, an ancient being who had witnessed countless diplomatic approaches over millennia, raised a quieting appendage. Ambassador Kalen, our traditional methods have failed to resolve this dispute for over a decade. The Earth approach may seem unorthodox, but their ability to break the ice, as they phrase it, has been remarkable. We will try this experiment. The fair was supplemented by a culinary reconciliation challenge, organized through the Mesh, requiring chefs from both disputing species to collaborate on creating a new dish incorporating cultural elements from both traditions. The fair began awkwardly the next day. The Lithosians and Nebulars, accustomed to formal opposition, struggled to engage in hypothetical cooperation. However, as they worked through the requirements of presenting joint research initiatives, shared resource utilization plans, and cultural exchange programs, something unexpected began to happen. Your crystalline computation methods, a nebular scientist commented to their Lithosian counterpart, would perfectly complement our atmospheric data processing. And your gas phase catalysis could revolutionize our mineral extraction techniques. The Lithosian responded with growing enthusiasm. The culinary challenge became the highlight of the event. Initial competition transformed into joyful collaboration as chefs shared techniques and ingredients. The final reconciliation dish, a crystalline structure that released aromatic vapors containing flavor molecules compatible with both species' sensory systems, received enthusiastic approval from delegates of both sides, creating an unprecedented atmosphere of goodwill. During this process, PNGUIN, through analysis of publicly available historical data, made an unexpected discovery. Waddling up to Ambassador Sharma during a break, the robot announced, "Historical anomaly detected in territorial claim documentation. Original boundary markers appear to reference stellar positions from approximately 3,000 years ago. Current dispute parameters may be based on outdated celestial coordinates." This revelation, when verified, opened the door for a completely new approach to the territorial issue. The outdated coordinates had caused both sides to misunderstand the original boundaries, fighting over areas that weren't even part of the original territories. With this new information and the improved relationship between the parties, formal negotiations resumed with a spirit of cooperation previously unseen. 3 days later, a creative and equitable resolution was signed, including unprecedented joint development initiatives inspired by the hypothetical project from the fair. At the closing ceremony, the union chair praised the Earth delegation for bringing fresh perspectives and breakthrough thinking to the proceedings, emphasizing the value of diversity in problem-solving approaches. Earth's more conventional conditions regarding military presence and technology exchange were approved quickly in the new atmosphere of trust and goodwill. After the formal conclusion, Kalin requested a private meeting with Ambassador Sharma. "I must admit," he said, his skin displaying a pattern that indicated reluctant respect, "that your methods, while completely contrary to all established diplomatic tradition, have proven effective." His tone suggested this admission cost him considerable pride. "But I still don't understand," he continued. "Why present such unusual conditions in the first place? Why insist on elements that seem so frivolous?" Ambassador Sharma smiled. "For humans, problem-solving isn't just about logic and rules. It's also about empathy, creativity, emotional connection, and sometimes even improvisation. Our conditions weren't just requirements. They were an introduction to this philosophy." She explained how shared experiences, whether games, food, or humor, create connections that formalized interactions cannot. How stress relief improves cognitive flexibility. How nonverbal elements like the ESC often communicate more effectively across cultural barriers than words alone. Diplomacy isn't just about finding compromises between fixed positions, she concluded. Sometimes it's about creating entirely new possibilities that no one had considered. In the weeks that followed, the impact of Earth's approach continued to ripple through Unity Station. The mesh became a permanent fixture, with other species requesting additions to its menu. The MSRS sessions, no longer mandatory, became popular voluntary activities, with interspecies esports leagues forming spontaneously. UOVL, memes, were adopted by younger diplomatic staff as an effective and formal communication channel. Rock, paper, scissors occasionally resolved minor issues with good humor. Zen the sloth, Verdi the bonsai, the Lumina butterflies, and PNGUIN became unofficial mascots of the successful conference. They remained at Unity Station by popular demand, with PNGUIN receiving a semi-official role in the archives department after demonstrating unusual skill at pattern recognition in historical documents. As for Ambassador Kalin, he remained committed to order and tradition, but he began to recognize the stagnation that had crept into Union procedures and the potential value of controlled chaos that Earth had introduced. Alara caught him secretly watching a gaming tutorial video on his private terminal. Another time, she observed him sampling a new bubble tea variety from the mesh when he thought no one was looking. In the final scene, Kalin stood at a distance, observing Ambassador Sharma and delegates from a dozen species participating in a cooking class for Thai Pad Thai, led by Michael Washington. PNG Eugen was offering fashion advice to a boulder-like delegate. The Lumina butterflies formed a sparkling galaxy above the gathering. Zen napped peacefully in a specially designed lounging area where stressed diplomats came to sit quietly. And Verdi the bonsai was performing a duet with a nebular musician, their combined talents creating something entirely new. Kalin's skin displayed a complex pattern that had no traditional diplomatic meaning. It was simply his own emotional response. He shook his head, a faint smile, or his species equivalent, appearing on his face. The universe had just become more complicated, more chaotic, but perhaps infinitely more interesting.